Here, although the room's full, all the tables are full, and there's more of them. You've got a real jewel in Carla Matari. I think she deserves it. So this isn't the first time I've spoken to the Republican adult human females. I know we're being recorded. I don't want to use the term woman because half the people don't know what that is. So, but I had prepared some words for today, and as frequently happens, I prepare them a day or two before, and then this morning I woke up in bed, and I was lying there. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning, thinking about what I was going to say this morning, and kind of running through the talk in my mind, and I kept stumbling over something and getting distracted in my mind. And the topic there is freedom of speech, what I'm doing here right now in front of you all. And the fact that we're on the cusp of losing it. The fact that we are on the verge of losing our ability to talk openly. It started with cancel culture, and then that kind of evolved into this weird wokeism. And now it's actually being formalized in ESG, right, which is environmental social governance. So if you don't have the right opinions on the right subjects, you're not going to be able to get hired. You won't be able to work. You won't be able to use your credit card. And this is terrifying for a lot of people, myself included. Now, if you want to see what that future looks like, you watch any news broadcasts from North Korea that shows dear leader up there and everybody applauding synchronously, and the look on their eyes like they're blinking hostage, you know, in Morse code. That's what a future of ESG looks like. And that's what a future without freedom of speech looks like. I kind of know this, I know some of you know this about me, but Regan is not my traditional family name. My parents were children of the Depression, and my father had to leave high school to help my grandfather earn enough money to feed the family. But they had a name that represented an ethnic group that was unpopular. And as a result of that, my father, again, fresh, he had dropped out of high school. And these aren't people that were useless people. My grandfather was an expert machinist and blacksmith. My father was a blacksmith and learning to be a machinist at this time, and a welder. Couldn't get work, and this was in the early days of World War II. You can imagine. And so he changed his name from Roland Zamboni to Barry Regan. And then he could get work. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I was brought up hearing this story a lot. And it taught me, and it was drummed into me, and lectured into me, and shown to me that you don't judge people by just the things they say. You don't judge somebody on one dimension, one utterance, one comment. That isn't their soul, that isn't the person. You need to know who they are before you pass judgment. Then you can hate them. But this kind of stuff, it's real, it's happening now. We've got people, I've got videos of activists who are sitting there plotting in a group saying, we're going to watch this person, this person, this person. When they say something wrong on social media or Twitter or whatever, we're going to pounce on them. We're going to go to their boss. We're going to go to their employer. We're going to go to their coworkers, and we're going to harass them until they're either quit or get fired. And it has happened. It has happened. Now these haters have a new slogan. Reject hate. Reject hate. It's Machiavellian. It is absolutely Machiavellian. If you know anything about human psychology and persuasion, you'll understand. Let me put it in other words. If I say to you, reject elephants, what do you think? Well, the first thing that pops in your mind is there must be elephants here somewhere. Where are the elephants? Find me an elephant and I will go tell them to get the heck out of town, because I'm supposed to reject elephants. Okay? Because your subconscious doesn't process a negative. If I say don't think of a rainbow, boom, rainbows. Can't help it. It's just the way the brain works. So where there are elephants, You know, where you see a T-shirt that says "Reject elephants," you think there must be elephants somewhere. I got to find them. That's what goes on in your head. And so if you say "Reject hate," obviously we're surrounded by haters. We must find these haters. We must reject them. I've been told to do that. It's on a T-shirt. It's a compulsion. Okay? So reject hate. I got to find the haters. Where are the haters? Well, let's see. I'll look around. You! I hate that pair of glasses you're wearing. You must be a hater. You're out. Okay? First thing I run across is, I don't want to think about this too long. I don't want to do an investigation, for crying out loud. I'm just going to find somebody that says something that I don't like, and then they're the hater, and I can reject them, and then we're all done. I've done my mission. I'm now morally superior to you all, because I have rejected hate. This is the same kind of stuff the SS and the Stasi used in East Germany. You know, the kind of manipulation that people use. And they understand psychology and manipulation. If Satan wanted to put hate in your heart, how would he do it? Well, he'd have hate, and he'd put it here and here and here on your heart. You'd carry it around. Hate. You'd look for hate. Here's the important part. When I say, or when they come to you and they say, so-and-so did such and such, you must renounce it, you must condemn it. You ought to stop. Your first reaction is, oh yeah, that was terrible. I'm gonna call them out. I'm gonna disavow. Think for a moment. And then they'll argue, if you pause too long, if you don't do it, you obviously agree with them. If you don't denounce the bad thing, you obviously think it's a good thing. This is a false premise. Bad things happen every second. I can't go around every second and denounce every bad thing that happens everywhere from everyone. I'm not responsible for those, and neither are you. You're not responsible for the words of others. They are responsible for their own words and actions. Suppose somebody says, I want to come search your house. The sheriff was just here a minute ago. He wants to search your house. And you say no. Is it fair for them to say, well, obviously you're hiding something? No, I've got a fundamental right to privacy. I can be secure in my person. I can be secure in my own thoughts. You can't force me to say something. You can't demand that I have speech in a certain way. I have a freedom of speech, and that's a freedom not to speak if I choose to. But they want to force you to speak. Just the other night, the clenched fist statue. Okay? That is a horrible symbol of hate and oppression. That's the communist symbol. In the 20th century, 160 million people were killed by their own communist socialist governments. Democide, it's called. You are more likely to be killed by your own government in the 20th century than by war or disease combined. Never mind the 6 million that were killed by the Nazis, or the 20 million that were killed by the Russians, or the 80 million killed by the Chinese. All of those deaths were by people, committed by people who were absolutely assured that they were morally superior to the people that they had condemned. Oh, we're inferior. You're a hater. You're a this. You're a that. We can get rid of you. You're not part of us. That fist statue. They might as well have just modified it and extended the middle finger. Yeah? So. Those same people that claim to reject hate embrace this symbol of hate. And it dwells in their mind. Now, I want you to consider Michael Moore. I know you're eating. But Michael Moore is that corpulent filmmaker, and he's anti-capitalist, and he's gotten fabulously wealthy by being a capitalist. But he hates the system, right? I wrote an article about him, it was maybe 10 years ago. And I called him the corpulent canary in the coal mine of free speech. And the reason is that I don't like Michael Moore. I don't like what he has to say. I object to what he has to say. I don't ascribe to any of his beliefs or philosophies. But damn it, he has a right to say it. He has an absolute right to say it. If he wants to stand up there and say things and make an ass out of himself, go for it. Because if we don't have guys like Michael Moore or Jennifer Drake who say things that we absolutely object to, if we can't have people like that, we know freedom of speech is dead. And that is the beginning of the end of the republic. We need these people on the fringes saying the things they say, and we almost need to sit there and take it and say, yeah, I can still take that. I know I'm a free person. I know I live in a free country. Because people can say horrible things, and I can walk away and go, oh, I didn't melt. We need that. Jennifer Drake, if she wants to take and paint a big fist on the front of her house, go for it. Just don't ask me to pay for the paint, right? If they want a statue of a fist in a park or on private space, that's fine. They can pay for it. They can't use our tax dollars to force me into that speech, because that's what it's doing. When you're using my money to give your message, you're forcing me to speak. And I have a right to speak or not. So we need these people. Now, I'm obviously not talking about advocating for violence or harm against people. That's not what I'm saying, and I don't want people to go, oh, Brent says we can talk and say horrible things. Well, but as soon as we start silencing those voices, it isn't long. It's not a question of if, it's only a question of when it's each one of your turn to be silenced. Every one of you. The standards that we accept are the standards that we will die by. Okay? If somebody can say, I said something, I wrote something in the paper, I put something down on Twitter, and we drive him from his job, and his ability to make money, it'll be your turn next. Because there's no standard, there's no, where is that line? Where is the threshold? How do I know I've gone beyond it? And that's this whole wolf culture is about. It's about people deciding for themselves what they think and trying to impose that on everybody else without any process or standard. We had, at our last Central Committee meeting, and I'll get off this topic, and get on a little more serious, fun stuff. At our last Central Committee meeting, we had a resolution presented by one of our newer members. And the resolution was basically a condemnation of the folks that were protesting during the 4th of July parade. The pro-abortion protesters and the city council people who were marching with them, with their Reject Hate and Kill Babies t-shirts, okay? And this resolution came before the Central Committee, and it was read aloud, and I looked around, and as chairman of the Central Committee, you can kind of get a feel for the room pretty quick. You have a sense of things. And I thought, well, this is going to be passed in a heartbeat. And then we got into the debate. And that's the thing I really enjoy about our Central Committee meetings, are the debate, because they are true debate. People get up, and they share their true feelings and their true ideas, and you actually change minds. You can actually be persuasive, and your friends say, oh yeah, Terry, she's got a good point. I'm going to listen to her, right? And so as the debate went on, people's mood and their ideas towards this started to change. And what we came down to the end is, yes, we object to this. Yes, it's offensive. The 4th of July parade should be a celebration of my birthday. I mean, the birthday of the United States. It is my birthday too. It should be a celebration and a parade and fun and kids and flags and all that good stuff. And then they have protesters marching down. It's like, somebody throwing a big piece of dog excrement on your dessert plate at the end of the meal. Okay? And yeah, it's, but they have a fundamental right to do it, and we recognize that. And if we, as a committee, condemned it, we'd be saying it's okay to condemn people that you don't like, even though they're doing political speech, which is absolutely a First Amendment right. And towards the end of that debate, the author of the resolution stood up and said, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to withdraw my resolution. And I turned and I said, I'd love to be able to do that, but you can't. Once you've given it to the committee, it becomes the property of the committee, and I've got our parliamentarian here who will throw a glass of water at me if I say otherwise. And so I said, well, let's vote then. And it was unanimous to not go forward with the resolution. That was probably one of the proudest moments as chairman that I could have, because the committee understood the fundamental concepts of freedom of speech. They understood, to a man and woman, adult female, what that meant. And I thought our republic is secure in the hands of people like this. So thank you, committee members that are here. Thank you for that. All right, now it's coming. I hate to be a buzzkill, so let's go on to the fun stuff. How many here went to the convention? Let's see a show of hands. Whoa, holy moly. All right, now, how many of you would not go again that went? Not a hand. How many didn't go and would like to go? Oh, all right. Well, did you have fun?
Yeah.
Did you really have fun, though?
Yeah.
All right. No, it was a blast, and they do it again. The delegate selection process, because there's been some unfortunate articles in the press that have blurred what this is all about. I want you to understand exactly how this happens, and you'll know why at the end of my time. Basically, if you are a registered Republican, and you could have registered yesterday, you can submit your name to the Central Committee and say, I want to be a delegate. As it turns out, every county gets 3 delegate positions and then 1 delegate position for every 1,000 Republican voters in the last congressional election. Okay? Canyon County has more people than we do by a fair bit, but we have more Republican voters than Canyon County. So we had the second largest delegation at 65. Okay? 65. Ada County had 141. Okay? Canyon County had 93, and Bonneville County, I think, had, or excuse me, Canyon County had 63, and Bonneville had about 41. So that's half the state right there. Our county is a significant force, and frankly, Ada County's was split between conservatives and those other guys. And so we were probably the largest contingent of conservatives to go down to Twin Falls. Now, you're allowed then 65 delegates and 65 alternates. That's 130 people that you can go on your list. And so we open our list and start collecting names. I had Bjorn Handeen run around and say, who wants to go, trying to beat in the grass to make sure that we got everybody that wants to get on the list. And then at the meeting, are there any more people that want to go, that want to be nominated to go? And anybody who's there, because yes, I'd like my name, put their name on the list. Okay? So we make this big long list. This time it happened to be about 77 or 78 people. And then we vote. And the reason we vote is because there can be 63 delegates and 63 alternates. So the people with the most number of tick marks next to their name get to be delegates, and everybody else gets to be an alternate. But anybody that wanted to go could go until we get to 130. So the idea that says, oh, well, you let so-and-so go. Well, there's no way to stop him. If he wants to go, he gets to go. If he's a registered Republican, he can go. In fact, the rules of our party state that if we do any shenanigans, our whole delegation can get kicked. And that we shall not discriminate, which we don't. It's completely open and fair. And we've been accused of, oh, Brent, he gets out there and he tells these people how to vote. Delegates, does any of you delegates, raise your hand if anybody told you how to vote on any vote? Some of you asked. Some of you asked other delegates. I got 1 or 2 questions. What do you think about, this person or that person? I tell you. But there was no, beating of votes or whipping or anything like that. We went down there. We were the force to be reckoned with. We marched into that hall and they said, oh, there's Kootenai County. Watch those guys. When it came for the invocation, boom, everybody was standing. When it came to the pledge, that was 700 people shouting the Pledge of Allegiance in that hall. It echoed. It was, those who were there will say, yeah, that was something else. It brought a tear to your eye. And so that's how we get voters to go down there. That's how we get delegates to go. And there's no shenanigans, there's no buffering, there's no anything. We went down there as a unified group because we're unified. Not because anybody tells us. You can't tell Republicans what to do. I can't go around and say, you do this, you do that, you do that. You'll just not do it just because I told you so, right? But we were definitely leadership down there in the sense that people looked to us to see what was going on, and I got dozens of compliments from people from other counties coming up to me and saying, you guys in Kootenai County, you got your act together, you're professional, you're well-mannered, you do all the good things that we want to. We want to be Kootenai County. We aspire to be Kootenai County. And that just swells my heart with pride, and for all the delegates, you should feel that as well. All right, so what do we do when we're down there? We have this convention. What are the convention-y kinds of things that we do? Well, there are a couple of boring committees. There's the Rules Committee, which doesn't really pass rules unless it's about the convention. If it's just party rules, that doesn't get passed there. It gets referred to the winter meeting, which is coming up in the winter. And it'll be then go through another committee, which is a Rules Committee again, before it's presented to the main body. So there were some rules. We'll worry about those in the winter meeting. There was also a Credentials Committee meeting. And the Credentials meeting is in case anybody complains about delegations, that there was a problem, that it gets resolved in the Credentials Committee. And there were several complaints. Tracy Wasden seemed to have a burr under her saddle and went in front of the committee and complained about Canyon County, complained about Legislative District 12. Legislative District 12 had their meeting at 6:30. Tracy showed up at 7:30 and the vote was already done, and she was upset about that. And tried to do something about it because her husband is the Attorney General. But that didn't go very far. And then Canyon County, those of us who have been through the delegate process know that there's a delegate pledge form, and there's 2 spots on it. And some people fill it in twice, and some people fill it in once, and somebody else fills it in twice. And because Canyon County had just elected a new executive team, they weren't really quite aware of that, and so they collected their 63 forms, but there were another 11 names that they hadn't accounted for. So they actually qualified 77 delegates for 63 spots. And I got a call from Garrett Peterson, their vice chair, in a panic, and because I'm also chair of the Rules Committee. And he said, what do we do? What do we do? And I said, well, I'll send you our spreadsheet that we did in Kootenai County, and you can just go have a special meeting and vote. And then you can just rank them in the voting system, and I gave them all the spreadsheets and stuff that we had done, and they ended up doing that and came up with it. But Tracy would have none of it. She was pretty upset, but that went down as well. So everybody got seated. The Credentials Committee breezed through, and we were happy with that. Now, there are 2 other committees, Resolutions and Platform. And I was the chairman of the Platform Committee at this particular time, and there was a bunch of platform changes that came before the committee. About half of them made them through to the General Assembly, and once we got into the General Assembly, eventually they all got through. The platform changes included affirming that we support criminalization of murder by abortion. Now, you've heard some crazy stuff about, oh, there's no exception for ectopic pregnancies or health of the mother. No, that's baloney. The platform does not say that. It says murder by abortion. Okay? That means taking of a life that doesn't need to be taken. If you've got an ectopic pregnancy or some kind of condition that you've got 2 heartbeats and only one can survive, the doctor obviously can triage that situation and obviously can take the appropriate steps to do the most good in a situation that's bad. Okay? That's clear. So this notion that the Republican Party doesn't want people who have medical conditions that are going to endanger their lives, that we don't care about that is not true. And that was a significant amount of the debate that went on about that, and it was, as we thought through it and worked through the wording, it was quite clear. So be assured of that. The other one was healthcare, having informed consent. In other words, before you take a jab, that you know what it's about, what the side effects are, what the consequences are, and that you shouldn't be just forced or coerced into doing it, that you have free will in that regard. Another one was that Republicans should be affiliated for at least a year before they can vote in the Republican Party. Yeah, this is an ongoing problem. Democrats are continuing to shift from into the Republican Party to vote, and then they back out again. And all they want to do, it's like saying, well, we got 2 teams, and this team is going to pick the players on that team. The primary is for each party to pick their candidate for the general election. Democrats should not be picking or involved in picking the candidates for the Republican Party. But they do. They want to. So we've been undergoing some pains and trying to figure out the best way to do it. It's a complex situation because somebody moves here from I don't know, the People's Republic of California, and they've been a lifelong Republican and they've been beaten up all their lives, and they move here, and then we're going to say, well, wait a minute, you can't vote as a Republican until you've been here a year? Well, maybe we want to quarantine them. I don't know. But so there's got to be provisions in there so that if you were a Democrat in California, moved up here, oh, I'm going to sneak in and be maybe we need to look at that. But at the root of it is that we're trying to have a fair primary. Okay? We're trying to have it so Republicans pick the Republican candidate and the Democrats pick the Democrat candidate, and then the general election the Republicans beat the Democrats. Okay? That's what we want. The other one was school choice. Our platform plank that says parents should be able to decide where their kids go to school and the money should follow them. Another platform was to change the redistricting system. We just went through redistricting, and just like all the other times, because it's 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans setting up redistricting, it ended up in a stalemate, had to go to the courts. Okay? So we need a better system for doing that, so that maybe we get 2 and 2, and then 2 in the middle that are picked by somebody else, so that we don't have a stalemate situation. And then, where's Nina? Nina Beasley! Nina Beasley, first-time convention goer, first-time delegate, first-time chair of Legislative District 3, first time making a platform plank proposal, and she got it done, repeal the 16th Amendment. Now, our income tax system is probably the least efficient and most prone for corruption way to tax people. So we should be smart enough to figure out a better way to do it. Having 8,000 pages of regulations, which is incomprehensible, and having to pay billions and billions and billions of dollars every year to have so-called experts prepare your returns so that you can pay your taxes is absurd. So hopefully we can get that taken care of. Another platform plank was the support of judicial interpretation of textualism and originalism. In other words, when judges look at the Constitution, Idaho Supreme Court and our federal Supreme Court, they should look at the original words and said in the original way at the original time, and not some construct that twist or invent or do judicial activism. So basically, it's a platform plank against judicial activism. Next was freedom of religion. Okay? Reinforcing the freedom of religion, and we shouldn't be prohibited from religious practice, even if it is in the public square. The Constitution says that religion is supposed to, that we have a freedom of religion. It's not a freedom from religion. And finally, that parents and not the state have a sacred duty and a God-given inalienable right to raise their children, and that biological gender is an essential characteristic. Okay, so that was the platform changes, and those will be up shortly. You'll be able to go to the IDGOP website and download all the new platforms. It's kind of hard to tell where the changes are because it just gets integrated in the new platform. But we did get it passed, and we did get it, the new one approved. On the resolution side, now resolutions are kind of a funny thing because they're more of a statement of belief, and it's kind of a wish list, okay? But it doesn't carry any force of law. And so you pass a resolution. It's an interesting exercise, and I call it's kind of practice for doing the serious stuff. Not that resolutions aren't serious, but there aren't a lot of consequences if you get it wrong. So the first one was support of Israel. And during that debate, it was saying, well, we don't support the Israeli government. Of course we don't support the Israeli government directly. What we support is the fact that Israel has a right to exist as a country, right? Yeah. That it has a fundamental right to exist on the planet. We don't support Benjamin Netanyahu and everything he does, or there are other leaders and everything they do. But we support the country to exist. We had another resolution against the crossover voting, which we had the platform plank on, but we also had a resolution. And there was a rule proposal which will be working its way upstream as well on that. So there was a lot of interest in the crossover voting. Another resolution in support of the Second Amendment and in opposition of red flag laws. The big complaint of red flag laws, which is a law that says, well, I don't like your spouse complained, your husband complained about you. We're going to come take your guns away until you get that settled. There's no due process. It's just, somebody saying to the sheriff or the judge without any kind of a trial, we're going to take your guns. And that's not right. You need to have process. Children's health bill, a Bill of Rights. We're calling on the legislature to pass a Bill of Rights for children's health so that they aren't unfairly manipulated into thinking, if a kid believes he wants to be a pirate, we shouldn't gouge out one of his eyes and cut off one of his legs, Kids have a right to be protected, even from their own wants at times, because they're kids. And when they're old enough to be adults and make adult decisions, they can make those decisions, but we shouldn't be pushing on them when they're young. Let's see, another resolution that U.S. troops are not the world's policemen. We shouldn't be sending our troops into places that we shouldn't be sending them to just to enforce laws that aren't ours. If there's a declared war, yes, but not an undeclared war. Safer internet for children. We want a way to look at that problem to see how we can make sure that our kids aren't being groomed online and they aren't getting abused or shown things that they should not be seeing at their age. ESG, anti-discrimination, again, the environmental, social, government system they want to impose on businesses and people, and we're against that. And then privatization of Idaho Public Television. We want to privatize that. And that was interesting. The resolution chair was Trent Clark, and he's on the board of the Idaho Public Television. And he came up to me and very emphatically said, Brent, you don't understand. Right now, Idaho Public Television, you might not like what they're doing, but it's under the control of the state, and so we have some control over it. And if they're privatized, we won't have any control over it at all. And, well, that was my reaction. I was thinking, okay, they're doing stuff I don't like and I'm paying for it. And I could stop paying for it and they'll still do stuff I don't like. I get it. Why are you saying this is a bad thing? And that's the kind of mentality that we want to have control, even if it's doing the wrong thing. And I'm thinking, if we're controlling it, we're to blame for what they're doing. Right? So let's cut them loose. They can survive just fine with all their donors and the, whatever foundation that they get money from. And I don't think our tax dollars in the era of the internet, where information is, far more information that you get off your television is sitting in your pocket right now in that little thing called a phone. And it's basically free. Why we should be paying for Idaho Public Television. Now they do some services where they watch all the boring meetings that go on in the Capitol, and you can see that in real time if you want to, if you're not getting enough sleep and you need to fall asleep. But that can be handled on contract from the state. We'll just pay you guys to do it. We don't have to give these blanket payments to them and hope that they do the right thing. Let's see. Another resolution to further secure our elections and thwart absentee ballot fraud. So we've got the clerks here, and we know that our Kootenai County Elections Office is a secure place because it's run by good people, okay? But you worry about other places. You worry about places where they've got drop boxes that were paid for by Zuckerberg, and how do the ballots get in there, and who watches it, who minds it. So we need to look at that. Another resolution to make municipal elections partisan, because there's no such thing as nonpartisan people. Everybody's got parties in their platforms have a series of beliefs, and either you believe those beliefs or you believe the other party's beliefs. Okay? You're in either one camp or the other. There's no such thing as a person that has no beliefs and is therefore nonpartisan. So we have a lot of Democrats that like being in public office and in taxing districts. If you look at your property tax bill, at the bottom there's all these little sewer district, road district, hospital district, blah, 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 all those things. All that adds up to your property taxes. Who controls those boards? Mostly Democrats, if you look into it. So let's make it out in the open. Let's make them partisan. we have to have a valid ID for voting. How about that? And this specifically is going for student ID, because student IDs are trivial to get. They don't even have a picture on them. You shouldn't be able to use that for voting. In fact, when it came to vote for our new board at the Idaho State Party, we had these credentials that hung around our necks, and they had our names and what county we were from, and whether we were delegate or an alternate. I said, okay, well, you come up and you present your credentials. And now, I had had a conversation with the executive director a couple days before, and I said, you're going to ask for photo ID, aren't you? And he said, well, yeah, when you get your credentials, you have to show photo ID to get your credentials. I said, what about before you vote? Oh, no, it'll be okay. I said, well, you can switch credentials. And no, it'll be okay. I said, okay, really? And so when it came down to it, they were up there giving the instructions on how to vote, and Brent trudged down to the microphone, and I said, excuse me. He says, yes, are we going to have photo ID to vote? And I said, no, you have your credentials, everybody has the credentials, and then Bjorn Handeen hops up, grabs his credentials and puts them around my neck. And I said, how do we know we're not swapping credentials? And there was a big uproar. And we want to, and so they went off, but hitter in the background, and came out, okay, you got to show your photo ID.
Good.
So, yeah, no, we got to have it. And my point was that if we're going to demand of the public, we have to set the example, right? If it's good enough for everybody else, it should be good enough for us. Even though I know lots of the people there, and you walk, hey, man, how you doing, you know? I still want to see photo ID. Trust but verify. Another resolution, which was one of my favorites, is a refusal to recognize imaginary identities. There's actually a school district in southern Idaho, I forget exactly where it is, where they're putting litter boxes in the restrooms because students are identifying as cats. Oh yeah. You know, they're pandering to this insanity to the extent they're putting litter boxes in the restrooms. So yeah, we need to bring some common sense back. And the final one, which was an interesting process, was to drop the lawsuit against Bonneville County. I don't know if you were aware, and that came in an interesting way. It was a tie vote in the committee, and Trent Clark, Bjorn Handeen voted to untie it as vice chair, and then Trent Clark voted to tie it up again. And when you have a resolution or anything before the committee, a motion before the committee that's tied, it fails. So it failed to get on the list out of committee. But there was enough votes. If you have a quarter of the votes or more, you can file what's called a minority report. And the minority report comes after the main report and says, I want the main body to also consider this one. And they did, and it was approved. Now, Bonneville was sued by our state party chairman unilaterally because they had engaged in, they sent out a bunch of flyers, and at the top they said Republican Party, and over on the side it said Bonneville County. And they said you didn't properly identify that it could be confused with the state party as opposed to just the county party. And they went to a judge to get an injunction. Frank Vandersloot, who desperately wanted Brian Smith not to win in Congressional District 2. Brian Smith was on the board of executive committee of Bonneville. And so Frank Vandersloot paid 10 grand to the state party to sue Bonneville individually. So Mark Fuller and Brian Smith and all those guys were sued individually. And then 2 days later, the big statewide text comes out, or at least in Congressional District 2, that Brian Smith was sued for election violation and found guilty. Now that didn't happen, but that's what came out, and ended up he narrowly lost that election. So this whole bit about suing other counties, the state party suing other counties, Tom Luna called me a few weeks before all this, and he asked me, he says, Brent, I want to know if I got your support. And I said, well, Tom, what I think isn't really important, because it's what the committee thinks. I says, I'm smart enough to know not to go against the wishes of the committee. And I said, if the election was today, no, you would not have the support of the committee. And he goes, what do you mean? We decided not to sue you guys. And I said, you beat up our sister, and now you think we're going to be your friend? And that was actually Tom's undoing in all this. There was T-shirts, there was "Don't Sue Me Bro" stickers, there was all kinds of, oh yeah, it was a major issue. And as a result of that, when the voting came up, it ended up being 150 votes, landslide for a whole new executive committee. Mark Fuller, Dorothy Moon. Dorothy Moon is our new chairman. And I just spent last weekend with Dorothy and her husband Dar and her sons and Theo Wold and a couple other folks down at her off-the-grid cabin just north of Stanley. And they've got several hundred acres in the woods, no utilities. I think got internet with a satellite. And I have never been so sure that we have good leadership at the top of the party as I was when I left that place. After watching her in action, you could give that woman an axe and send her into the wilderness and she would build a freaking city. Yeah, she is determined, she is full of energy, she has the right underpinnings, the right morals, and just no nonsense. No, we're not gonna do that. You know, it's very black and white and clear to her. And I'd hate to be her enemy. I really would. But we are in good hands there, and the whole leadership team, I think, is in good shape. So very happy for that result. We came away from there energized. The meeting was the largest one. The convention was the largest one we ever had, and we have decided, as a committee, that we are going to petition to have the 2024 Idaho GOP convention right here. Now, Carla has already stepped